So the last time we talked about the gaslighting, the projection, the sheer audacity of people who simultaneously preach, don't judge, while declaring your eternal damnation using a 4-point font and 0 punctuation. It was a masterclass in hypocrisy. But there is another species of commentator, and they deserve our critical, yet extremely comical attention today. I'm talking about the proselytizers. These aren't the angry critics, folks. These are the missionaries. The ones who truly believe that your decades of critical thinking and painful deconstruction can be instantly reversed by dropping a King James Bible quote and a smiley face emoji in your DMs. They swoop into the comment section like a sad, overly zealous corporate trainer trying to sell you a 1998 self-help DVD. They look at me, an ex-Christian and atheist, who has analyzed the historical, ethical, and scientific frameworks of their belief system from every possible angle, and they genuinely think, my problem is that I just haven't heard the right sales pitch yet. So here is the guarantee for today's video. If you have ever walked away from one of these spiritual conversations feeling utterly frustrated, confused, or just profoundly patronized, the failure was not yours, it was theirs. And by the end of this broadcast, we will have meticulously cataloged and ridiculed every item in their outdated evangelical toolkit. So get comfortable. We are about to execute a glorious, detailed, and extremely hilarious takedown of the entire Christian conversion strategy. Welcome to this podcast. I'm Toothless Grin Kim. Let's get on with it. So let's start with the fundamental problem, the elephant in the cathedral, the core reason every proselytizing attempt directed at an atheist or an ex-Christian is doomed from the moment they hit send. The conflict is not a conflict of ideas. It's an epistemological shift. Think of it like this. We, the ex-Christians, did a spectacular, necessary, and frankly, expensive system upgrade. We swapped out the old, unsupported, constantly crashing operating system. Let's just call it Faith OS 1.0. For the sleek, robust, perpetually updated framework of Logic and Evidence 5000. Faith OS 1.0 was based on 3 unreliable inputs. Authority, because the pastor said so. Feelings, because I cried during the worship song. And tradition, because that's how Grandma did it. Now, Logic and Evidence 5000, the one we upgraded to, Logic and Evidence 5000, has one rule: verifiable reality. Now, when a committed Christian comes into my comments and drops a long paragraph about salvation, they are essentially walking over to my supercomputer running the latest verifiable physics simulations and demanding that I manually uninstall my modern OS and reboot using a floppy disk from 1985. They are playing checkers. We are designing the chessboard, the pieces, and rewriting the rules of the entire game based on peer-reviewed metrics. The traditional toolkit is profoundly powerless because we are operating with fundamentally incompatible rulebooks. The first item in the evangelical playbook that needs setting on fire is the narrative of the lost sheep. This perspective hinges entirely on the belief that we left faith because of anger, trauma, loneliness, or that we simply lost our way. And while it's true, some of us, had trauma or whatever, it's not true how you leave Christianity. You don't leave Christianity, a belief system, because you've been hurt. You leave it because Christianity is false. It's not logical. That's why you leave it. So their perspective on the lost sheep, this perspective hinges entirely on the belief that we left faith because of anger, trauma, loneliness, or that we simply lost our way. Excuse me, Pastor Kevin. We didn't lose our way. We walked out with a flashlight, a map, and a 400-page annotated bibliography. The massive movement away from Christianity, especially among people raised in the faith, is not driven by existential sadness and a need for a hug. It is driven by deep, critical, and frankly, exhausting analysis. We inspected the pen, calculated the cost-benefit analysis of staying versus leaving, checked the structural integrity of the gate, and concluded, yeah, this place is logically unsound. And then we walked out, happily, choosing self-determined truth over the confines of conditional belief. For every single conversion in the U.S. today, 6 people raised in the faith are choosing to leave. That is not a minor leakage, folks. That is a corporate meltdown. That's not a few lost sheep. That's the entire flock hiring an auditor and relocating to a better pasture based on actual data. So when a proselytizer tries to appeal to my supposed sadness or emptiness, I just want to hand them a printout of the philosophical arguments against divine hiddenness and a list of my hobbies. We are not empty. We are full of delightful, evidence-based curiosity. So let's dive into the core proselytizing tactics, shall we? These are the tired echoes of 20th century Sunday school curriculum that Christian evangelists keep pulling out, completely oblivious to the fact that we were the ones who wrote the original curriculum. Oh, the classic. Conditional emotional appeals, often dressed up in the flimsy costume of friendship evangelism. For example, they would say, oh, we just want to love you where you are. We just want to love you where you are. We just want to offer true community. Let me tell you, we were in the community. We know exactly how it works. We know that the acceptance offered is a timeshare contract written in disappearing ink. The community acceptance always hinges on conformity. It's not a friendship. It's a bait and switch marketing funnel. Imagine a proselytizer sending a comment and saying, hey, we noticed you need love. Come join our small group. We love everyone. Also, step 3 is you must repent for your lifestyle choices and sign this eternal non-disclosure agreement. But we recognize that game instantly. Us ex-Christians. We recognize this game instantly. We try to stay and be authentic, and we were told our authenticity was a threat to the entire brand. We learned that the friendship offered is a transaction where the currency is your intellectual submission. You recognize its manipulation because the moment you stop conforming, the love suddenly carries an expiration date and a one-way ticket to eternal torment. It's the least secure relationship ever devised. This is the most frequently used tool in the comments section, the emotional antidote. They come to our evidence-based logical video and declare, "But I felt God move in my heart when I was 15. How can you explain that powerful feeling?" For example. So, I have a newsflash for you, proselytizer. We know the feeling. We not only experienced those powerful, chest-swelling, tear-inducing feelings, but we have since learned to critically analyze them. And guess what? Neurochemistry does a fantastic job of explaining them. A powerful feeling is compelling. It is a fantastic subjective experience, but it is not objective data. I've had powerful feelings watching a baby goat video. I've had truly transcendent feelings after eating an entire pizza by myself and realizing I could nap for long hours at a time. None of those feelings prove that a divine entity wants me to attend a midweek service. When you use your testimony to argue for objective reality, you just reveal that you prefer anecdotes over actual data. We prefer rigor. We prefer repeatability. We prefer the cold, hard, glorious certainty of something that can be tested outside of your personal skull. Your testimony is valuable as a personal memoir. As evidence for the existence of God, it's about as convincing as my argument that I deserve a tax break because I'm so charming. This is the ultimate confession of the intellectual defeat. When all other tactics fail, the pity, the conditional friendship, the subjective feeling, they finally pull out the emergency lever and say, for example, you just have to believe. You just have to have faith. And so this is where the epistemological conflict becomes a truly glorious category error. When a Christian insists you must just have faith, they are asking you to intentionally downgrade your entire system. They are demanding that you utilize the exact tool you rightly set aside as unreliable because it failed every stress test. Imagine a structural engineer building a bridge. If the calculations are flawed, you don't say, "Just have faith the concrete will hold." You demand proof. You demand the correct load-bearing metrics. We, the exchristians, built bridges that span the entire canyon, relying on mathematics, physics, and verifiable materials. They are standing there, demanding we abandon the bridge and instead attempt a blind leap into the abyss, just because their defunct operating system required it. When they say, "have faith," they are asking you to embrace intellectual dishonesty as a virtue. They are asking you to accept something in the absence of evidence. That is the definition of unreliability, and we are simply too proud of our new, verifiable framework to accept such a weak premise. We swapped faith for facts. We swapped authority for evidence. And you know what? It runs so much faster. We have better battery life and zero viruses. We are not downgrading for anyone. The proselytizer has tried appealing to our sadness. Fail. Our need for friends. Fail. And our love of powerful feelings. Double fail. What happens next? Yes! The moment of desperation. The moment the mask of love slips. And they realize they must resort to the only tool left in the box. Fear and insult. This is usually when they abandon the sales pitch and move straight to either moral panic or the thinly veiled threats. The first insulting maneuver is the implication that morality vanishes without divine oversight. This is the accusation that because we don't believe in an invisible sky referee, we are now just waiting for an opportunity to rob a bank, steal a kitten, and commit various other delightful atrocities. Now that I am free from Jesus, I shall engage in radical empathy and fight for human flourishing based on evolutionary ethics. Well, for example, this is an easily disproven falsehood. Our genuine compassion and commitment to human flourishing in this life, the only life we can confirm is happening, shines as irrefutable proof that our moral compass is stronger than ever. Why? Because our morality is rooted in empathy, not fear. We treat people well because we understand suffering and want to minimize it. We do good because we want a better society, not because we're trying to avoid a fiery eternal timeout. In fact, one could argue that a morality rooted in the fear of consequence is fundamentally weaker and less reliable than one rooted in deeply felt human empathy. An atheist sees a person suffering and thinks, I must help him or her. And a fear-based believer might think, I must help them or I will burn forever. Basically, God tells them they have to help people, so they help people in order to gain favor with God. So, which one of those two instances? Which one is the authentic moral drive? The reality is that we found our morality beyond the confines of the dogma. It didn't disappear. It matured. So when they weaponized the morality argument, just remember, we are driven by compassion, not cosmic bribery. And finally, when the proselytizing strategy hits the wall at 90 miles an hour, they pull out the nuclear option. Hell. The age-old threat of eternal suffering. The rhetorical equivalent of a child holding their breath until they get what they want. We all know this as the flimsy echo of Pascal's wager, which, frankly, crumbles instantly for anyone who has done 5 minutes of critical thinking. To my dear proselytizers, a consequence from a discarded belief system holds no sway over a liberated mind. You are threatening me with the boogeyman I stopped believing in several years ago. It's like threatening a grown adult with the possibility of Santa putting them on the naughty list. It's adorable, but it's powerless. Furthermore, Pascal's wager only works if Christianity is the only option. I could equally be threatened with being turned into a yak in the next life if I offend the Tibetan sky gods. If I start praying to Jesus purely out of fear, wouldn't a just, all-knowing God see right through that transparent, fear-driven manipulation? Yes, they would. Meaning the fear tactic invalidates itself. It's a beautifully circular failure. This fear-mongering only serves as a stark reminder of what we left behind. Manipulation veiled as authentic care. When love is wielded as a weapon, conditional on conformity and backed up by threats of eternal damnation, we see it for what it truly is: coercion. And we are no longer susceptible to coercive contracts. So how do we, the upgraded, logically sound ex-Christians, handle these proselytizers in the wild, or more specifically, in the comment sections of our videos, with clarity, confidence, and a touch of well-deserved amusement? We must elevate our conversations by recognizing the silent power dynamics at play. The proselytizer often operates under the assumption of intellectual and moral privilege. They assume they possess the corrective truth for the emotionally damaged heathen. We need to flip that assumption. Remember your strength. Your commitment to evidence is not a weakness. It is the ultimate foundation for honesty and truth. Be proud of the shift. Be confident in your new framework. It's the one supported by reality. When they approach with their subjective appeals, you simply bring the conversation back to epistemology. When they share a feeling, I'll give you an example of, through all this, what you say whenever they do something, these are the things you say. So when they share a feeling, you say, that sounds like a profound experience, but feelings are internal. What external testable evidence do you have to link that feeling to your specific deity? When they appeal to community, you could say something like, I require authentic connection that is not conditional on me abandoning my intellectual integrity. Does your love survive my permanent skepticism? Spoiler, it usually doesn't. That's why they stop commenting. When they demand faith, you can say something like, I'm no longer utilizing tools that require the absence of evidence. When you can produce verifiable data, I will engage. Until then, you are asking me to intellectually sabotage my intellectual process. So we must foster dialogue rooted in deep respect for our own journey, recognizing that true connection blooms from a place of genuine, non-coercive love for humanity, not a conditional love for converts. We honor individual journeys by leaving others in peace, something the proselytizer simply cannot grasp. For us, the ex-Christians and atheists, the traditional sales pitches fall flat. We've raised our standards. We demand verifiable evidence, not conditional acceptance or faith as a starting point. To genuinely connect with us, they must step onto the turf of evidence. They must challenge claims with rigorous proof, moving beyond manipulation. It's an invitation to a more honest, more rigorous dialogue where truth is demonstrated, not simply declared. And until they accept that invitation, they are just waving a shiny, cheap pamphlet at a quantum physicist. So friends, atheists, skeptics, ex-Christians, You are operating on the superior framework. You executed the glorious system upgrade. You swapped the emotional rhetoric for the robust foundation of reality. So the next time you see a comment, or get an email, or have a strange encounter with someone trying to bring you back to the fold, remember, they are bringing a 19th century map to a 21st century civilization. Their toolkit is hilarious. Their system is obsolete. And their failure to convert you is simply proof that logic won. And that brings us to the question of the day. You all know these tactics. You've seen them deployed in the comments, in your DMs, or at awkward family Thanksgiving dinners. So I want to know, which proselytizing tactic is the most common or the most frustratingly ridiculous one that has ever been used on you? Was it the conditional love, the emotional testimony, or the immediate, panicked threat of hell? Drop your answers and your funniest stories in the comments below. Let's compare notes and prove that we are not lost sheep. We are critical analysts who simply demand better data. If this breakdown made sense to you, if you appreciate conversations that aren't afraid to get into the logical details, and if you think the evangelical playbook is ready for the Smithsonian, hit that subscribe button. We're building a community here based on open inquiry, and you are welcome in it. No conditions attached. If you enjoyed this podcast and you'd like to support it, please consider making a $3 monthly donation by going to my Patreon and becoming a member. The link is in the description below. Thanks for watching, and keep thinking critically. Once again, this is Toothless Grin Kim. I look forward to the next time we talk, and bye.